So you guys know that PPC is one of the most important factors in any successful Amazon business. And I see this as still one of the most neglected areas. There's so much that can be done with PPC. And especially right now with everything going on, people are tight on money. People don't want to be bleeding money, losing money in areas that are not leading to profits in their business. So in this video, we're talking with Mina Elias, who is a absolute master of PPC. I fully trust anything he says on PPC. He goes deep into it. And we're talking about strategies in general for Amazon, but also kind of how to deal with when your campaigns are just losing your money. Maybe you just started and it's not going well. It's not leading you to a bunch of profits. Instead, it's just losing you money. So how do you fix that? And how do you dial back? How do you push further on the actual profitable stuff? So that's what we're talking about in this video. And if you like what Mina has to say, you can check out the description below. There are links for how you can work with him and reach out to him. And if you get value out of this video, please do smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, and leave comments. Mina will be looking at this video as well, answering any questions. Maybe we'll do a follow-up as well. So check that out. And here's my conversation with Mina. All right, Mina, how's it going?
Everything's good, man. We're quarantined, staying home. I'm sure you know. So it's the same old. It's been the same day, been repeating for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, man, exactly. Thanks for coming on. But I feel like it's the perfect time. Nobody's doing much of anything. So what I mainly want to get into is talking about problems with PPC, especially right now. People want to save money. So if you have PPC that's bleeding, now is definitely not the time for that. But also talking on a wider scale, what in general do you do if your PPC is bleeding money? How do you take bad PPC and turn it into good PPC? And you are definitely an expert at this. I'm sure a lot of people watching this have seen you establishing yourself in the Facebook group. So yeah, that's what I really want to get into. But first off, for people that don't know you, quick little backstory. How long have you been selling on Amazon? How'd you kind of get into the PPC rabbit hole?
So I started selling on Amazon in 2018. I actually started my company before knowing anything about Amazon as a supplement company. So I sell supplements. I have multiple brands now, multiple Amazon accounts. And so when I started, I was at a show and I had samples with me and I was selling them. And people kept asking me, where can I buy them? And I lied and I said, it's going to be on Amazon soon. And I didn't know anything about Amazon. So I went home, did a deep dive on YouTube and figured out, okay, this is how I got to get on Amazon. There was still the whole you got to pay $3,000 to sell in supplements, which is a lie. So anyways, I called Amazon, got this stuff going and started selling. And because my niche was so competitive, I immediately was like, okay, I need to understand how I can compete with these big sellers. And PPC was one of the main ways. And I noticed that I was doing a lot better in long tail keywords and things like that, as time went by. So it was kind of a flag, hey, this is your this is how you can succeed. And so then I went down the PPC rabbit hole. I went to that one year I went to 5 different conferences, and it wasn't the regular conferences the Amazon ones. It was on a professional side, where all the people there were employees of $100 million, $50 million companies, really big companies. They weren't doing private label, everything was all brands and stuff. And so I would talk to every single person in those events and what are you doing with PPC, this and that, and I just absorbed so much. I got my money's worth for sure. And then I called up a bunch of PPC consultants, asked them so many questions, and eventually I started understanding everything. And it was just a lot of diving into the spreadsheets and the numbers and details and the data. And eventually when you spend enough hours doing something, you start getting good at it. And that's pretty much what happened. And I'm always learning. I'm in touch with all the other leaders in PPC. I'm always asking questions and staying educated. So I guess that's kind of a quick summary on me and why I know so much about PPC.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think it's great that you just found that one aspect to really drill down into. And I've always been a huge proponent of PPC. I think that people overlook it. So seeing you go so deep into it, I mean, I think that I know how much value there is in that, and that most people watching this, even established sellers, are probably still neglecting it. And also I see so many people that are, new sellers that throw together a couple of campaigns, it's not working, and give up. Like, what do I do? So, what what are some things that you've like picked up, like not even necessarily getting into those mistakes yet, but just what are some things you've picked up that most people aren't doing with PPC?
The number one thing I would say is I see like very poor campaign structure. And what I mean by that is you'll see a lot of people will have like one campaign and then like 10 ad sets in there and then like 100 keywords per ad set. And like if you understand the way like Amazon's looking at that, you have a budget on your campaign and then the money is going to get distributed between the ad sets and you don't know how Amazon's distributing that money. So number one, like that's already, bad for you. And then when you go and you look into the under the ad sets, you have 100 keywords. Amazon's going to say, okay, like you have 100 keywords, your budget is $50. So how is that even going to work? So then Amazon starts making those decisions for you and saying, well, we're only going to spend your money on like these two keywords versus like, so campaign structure is one of like the biggest. I mean, I've seen every single like from the smallest to the biggest sellers make that same mistake, is having too many ad sets. I don't even have any more than one ad set per campaign, because then it's a straight line. It's the budget and then goes straight to the ad set and then it goes straight to the keywords, and then I limit my campaigns to 10 keywords. And another thing is that there's this thing where it's like you should only have like three campaigns, like an auto and a manual and a product. And I don't know like where I heard that, but I heard it a lot, and I was like, that's wrong, because I confirmed with people from Amazon, and they said that you need to be launching campaigns regularly, because the more you launch, you get that spike in impressions, because Amazon gives your campaign a chance to like it doesn't know how well it's going to do, so it gives it a chance. So it's just like a few things like that, like not launching enough campaigns, being afraid to segregate your campaigns by like certain metrics, like putting high impression keywords with low impression keywords. When you do something like that, you get like the whole bullying where like the big high impression keywords just take all the spend and the low impression keywords don't do anything, even though it's like we know for a fact the long tail keywords are the ones that are get you like the most profitable sales. It's obviously they don't get you a lot of sales, but when you put them all together, like you have a 10,000 long tail keywords, and you get like one sale a month, that's a lot of sales.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the biggest key there is that having a goal for each particular campaign, like rather than just having those three campaigns per product or whatever, because each campaign can be structured in such a way that it's attacking specific things. Like, oh, I'm attacking these long tail cheap keywords, or in this one I'm just blasting my huge keywords, because otherwise you end up with exactly what you said, is somebody has 300 keywords in a campaign, two of them are spending all of the budget, and then you've actually never even tested the other keywords, really, because they've never even had a chance to get shown, and you don't even know what's going on. So that is for sure a great tip, and something that I can attest to. I see that all the time. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, go on. I was gonna shift into the next one.
I was gonna say I've absolutely seen like what you're talking about, and I love that you said that you think that you're bidding on these keywords, but you're really not, and that's like something that people really need to understand. Like if you have 100 keywords in a ad set and it's only spending on the top three keywords, you think that you're actually bidding on those keywords, but you are not. Like they're as if they weren't there. And so just taking that out and like those keywords out and separating them and giving them a chance to like shine can be huge for you.
Yeah, totally. So what are maybe some mistakes on the a little bit more beginner side, since we kind of jumped into somebody that might have a lot going on? Where do you start with somebody that has recently launched and they get that 100% ACOS and they're just immediately like thrown into the deep end of not knowing what to do? Like, where do you suggest people start with the sifting of that, and how do they start some new experiments, and how do they fine tune what's already going?
So, initially your goal should be to discover keywords, right? Because you start off not knowing what the keyword, like what keywords are good for you, what keywords are going to be profitable, what keywords are not. So you usually like are typically running auto, broad, and phrase campaigns. Now, my first tip for a beginner would be instead of just launching one auto, launch 4 autos, and each one would be per each targeting group. So you have a close match, loose match, complements, and substitutes. Now the reason is, how many times have we heard like, oh man, like this one ASIN is bleeding my auto campaign, but can we negative ASINs? And we're like, unfortunately, you cannot negative an ASIN, but when you break it out, at least that ASIN is only going to be in the complements and substitutes, but it's not going to be in the close match or loose match. So you can have a very well, like good performing close match and loose match, campaign. And then if you have that one keyword, like that's your number one competitor that's bleeding you out in complements or substitutes, you can just lower the bid on that like single campaign without having it affect all the other campaigns. So that's one thing I would do. Breaking up the auto campaigns makes your control on the auto campaigns a lot better. Now back to discovery, right? You have broad and phrase campaigns. So your main goal should be to discover all these new keywords. Now what you're gonna do is when you go into the search term reports, you're gonna notice that some keywords are doing really well within one. Like let's say your broad keyword is like phone case. Phone case will trigger for black phone case, hard phone case with the grips, like things like that, and looking at those keywords and seeing how each one performs, like especially if you're beginning or at a time like this where you're trying to save money, you'll notice that some keywords are doing really well, but you'll have that one keyword that's doing really bad, and it almost like brings the whole class average down. It brings the ACOS for that one keyword is going to look like it's 80%, 90%, even though you have like a 20%, 25, 30%, and then one at 110%, something like that. So identifying those keywords early and then removing them and bidding on them on their own is going to be a key. You could have that broad keyword still there, just negative that single keyword out, and then you can bid on it somewhere else where you have a little bit more control, like in an exact match type.
That was one thing I wanted to ask, is if you were in the camp of putting your good keywords into negative and separating them out, or if you just separate them out and keep it running to kind of like not turn off the faucet on something that's working. Because sometimes people will find that they do that, and then the keywords that performed all of a sudden no longer perform. So
yeah. So I'm totally with that. If it's performing, do not turn it off. So because like you'll have some keywords in broad, like you said, you take them out, put them in exact, and you assume that they're going to perform just as good as they did in broad, but they don't. And so that's one of the biggest things. People are like, I thought it was doing well, like why isn't it performing? They each have their own, like it's almost like a different identity. Each one is like a different keyword, it's a different person. And so if it's working, never negative out. Like that's definitely a rule of thumb. If it's working, why stop it?
Yeah, I'm glad we clarified that, because a couple years back it was much more pushed to put it as negatives, but I agree with you completely. And I think that this Amazon brain, the algorithm, is much more complex than just like, oh, this exact keyword is right here. It's like, no, they're showing that at certain places and times and certain people, and it's very, very complex. So, I would say the reason people want to do that is to clean up their data and make things like more trackable, more clean. But it's probably best to like, don't turn off something that's bringing you a lot of profit.
I agree. And a lot of people, like you said, they think like it's almost like three stages. It's broad, and then you take it from broad, put it in phrase, and then take it from phrase, put it in exact. And no, I think it's like they're all different. So you should have all of the keywords in broad, all of them in phrase, and all of them in exact, and then treat them all like they're their own individual. Like, like a broad keyword and a exact keyword. Don't even look at it as if they're the same keyword but two match types. They're almost like they're two different keywords, because the broad just it triggers for 10 different keywords, triggers for like 3 or 4, and the exact triggers for one. So you can't say that it's the same keyword. They're like completely different keywords.
Totally. And they're truly all just individual data points. And then you just have this wide array of data points. And then this could kind of also shift into the question of how you are tuning these things over time. Do you have a specific strategy for, ACOS above this, you're cutting by this percentage? Like the way I look at it is kind of like a spectrum. The more out of the money on the ACOS, the more you're going to turn it off or cut it. If you're a little bit out, you might drop it a bit. If it's very profitable, you're going to bump it up a lot. If it's a little profitable, you might bump it up a little. Like, what is kind of your outlook on the fine tuning once you have all these different data points?
Gotcha. So, first thing I would say is you have to have a completely non-emotional approach. I know so many people who are upset that their main keyword or keywords that they think are relevant are not doing well. So, what I do is I take, like, I don't even look at what the keywords are. I just look at the results. So I'll go into the bulk sheets and I'll sort and just show keywords and product targets. And then what I'll do is I'll sort by sales and I'll insert a column right next to the sales, and the equation of that would be sales divided by total sales. Sales for that single keyword divided by all of the sales generated, in that time period. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell me how much percent of all of my sales does that single keyword account for. So, and most of the time you'll notice that like 10 keywords account for 90% of your sales. And so for those like 10 keywords that are accounting for most of your sales, and first and foremost, you have to separate by SKU because you can't have like, five different products that you're looking at the PPC for and do these sorts of equations because they're taking in different products into account. So first things first, make sure that you're segregating by product. So once you're looking at only one product's data, like I said, sort by the sales, and then you're gonna see like that those top 10 keywords are accounting for most of your sales. Those top like 5 or 6 keywords, they're super, super sensitive. So when it's time for me to, I look at the ACOS, right? If the ACOS is good, then great. I'm gonna either keep it the same or increase it a little bit. But again, they're super sensitive, so those ones have a high sensitivity. Like a small increase is gonna result in a lot of change. So whether you're increasing or decreasing, trying to save money or trying to get more exposure, make sure that you do it very, very slightly. And when I say slightly, I'm talking like 5 cents. When you go down lower, where it's the other 10% that are driving, like the bottom 10% that are driving the remaining 10% of sales, for those ones, it's probably like 1,000 keywords, right? Which is funny. Like, why are we bidding on 1,000 keywords if they're only driving 10%? Well, because when you drive on 1,000, you bid on 1,000 keywords, and eventually one of them it gets to sale every now and then, and it's pretty profitable. But for those ones, I do have something like you said, where it's like, okay, my break even equals my profit margin before marketing. So if my profit margin on my product is 50%, then that's my break even ACOS. So that's my goal, to get all these keywords to 50% ACOS, because obviously with the spillover of organic sales and all that, it's going to come down to like maybe overall 10% of your margin. So once you determine that break even number, you're gonna see, okay, everything that's above that number, I'm gonna lower the bids. And like you said, let's say 50 to 60, you're gonna lower by 1%, 60 to 70, lower by 2%, 70 to 80, lower by 3%, and so on and so forth. And same if it's lower, if it's like 40 to 50% ACOS, you wanna increase the bids by 1%, kind of like pushing it to drive more sales. And basically, the reason that I do such small changes, like 1%, 2%, is because I've noticed that when you do a drastic change, it always results in something unfavorable. Because let's say that the sweet spot was $1.50 bid, and you're at like $1.80, and you go down to $1.20, you end up losing sales. And getting that traction back becomes a lot harder than if you just went from $1.80 to $1.70 to $1.60.
Yeah, I find that too. If you shock the system too much, it goes the other way too. If you were getting no impressions at $1.20 and all of a sudden you put $2, maybe that tipped the threshold and all of a sudden it's blowing out spend unfavorably. Whereas you kind of have to like really find that sweet spot.
Exactly. Yeah. And another thing is that sweet spot's always changing. So PPC is never a set it or forget it thing. That sweet spot is always changing because it depends on human behavior. And this week it's someone who's clicking on it. Next week it's someone different who's clicking on it. So that number is constantly changing, and you're basically just chasing in that direction based on the data.
Yeah, totally. So other than the separating out the auto campaigns, which I think is an incredible insight, what are maybe some other initial tests for somebody who is, at that stage where their PPC is not helping them, or it seems to be?
Other than breaking that up, once you have a very good system of all your campaigns are separated very nice and very clean, you have like 10 keywords per campaign, all that stuff, you're discovering keywords, you're pulling them from the search term reports, you're putting them into new campaigns and all that good stuff, then it just becomes like a game of just like systematically adjusting the bids. So you're going to go in every week or every 2 weeks, depending on your spend, and you're gonna look at the bids, you're gonna adjust them, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. Now, other things that people can do to drive like some profitable traffic is, I think, a lot of product targeting stuff. So things like, first of all, if you have multiple products, that definitely target your own things. Targeting like complementary categories will also drive a lot of traffic, while being very profitable. Usually, you'll notice that if you bid on like a complementary category, the cost per click is lower. Other things like searching. I guess like that would cover most of the stuff. There's a few other things I can't think off the
So
top of my head.
would you ever suggest to people to start out with specific manual targets, or are they only getting those from, you know, data crawling through automatics? Like, do you ever just say, start out with a couple campaigns, 10 keywords each of, say, keywords you really want to target for sure, or are you only letting the data tell you that?
No, I'm definitely doing both. So I'm starting off like immediately. You should know what your biggest keyword is, and that's probably what's going to be in the first 5 words of your title. So whatever that main keyword is in the first like 5, 6 words of your title, you should be targeting that. And I usually put that on its own in a campaign in broad phrase and exact. So that's 3 campaigns just for one keyword. And that's something that I would bid aggressively on, lose a little bit more money, but it does drive up your ranking organically, which is going to help you make sales.
Exactly. So
And
that's
then,
one to just target to boost that initial velocity,
mhm,
rank for a keyword that is extremely relevant. So again, that circles back to different strategies for different campaigns.
yeah, and there's one strategy that not a lot of people use, and it's almost like I call it the evil strategy, and it's looking at all the new products that just launched on Amazon and targeting them. We all started initially on Amazon, and we had 0 reviews, and we had like no history or anything, and then all the sponsored products under our product was probably like stealing, sales from us. So it would be pretty much the same, because you piggyback off of the fact that these people are probably running a ton of ads, a ton of auto. Also, it's the honeymoon period, so Amazon is giving them that spike in visibility. So you piggyback off of that, and you know that you're better because you have more reviews. Obviously, I wouldn't target something that's like cheaper than you, because puts you almost at a little bit of a disadvantage. But if you are targeting something that's brand new on Amazon, 0 reviews, more expensive, you're gonna have a lot of good luck with that.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that you can do quite a handful of tests like that. You could set up one that's, you said you might not want to target ones that are cheaper than you, or yeah, but maybe you do. Maybe you set up one that's only where you're positioning yourself as the authority, or maybe you set up one where you're only targeting ones that are more expensive. So then, oh, look, a cheaper option, great, I'll buy that instead. Or you only target ones that
Absolutely.
have a less star rating than you. You have 4.5. You just find a bunch of products that are lower star ratings, lower total quantity of reviews. Like I love calling it the evil strategy, and I think there's like a whole suite of them to test. Really, I mean, you can set
Yeah.
up, like, you could be like my competitor, like the top competitor target campaign. You could set up like the losers campaign. There's a lot of different ways. The new launch ones, the no reviews. There's definitely a lot of things, a lot of different experiments,
Hmm.
and I think that's a key point just overall, and a big part of my general thesis of PPC, and it sounds like yours too, is you have to throw out a ton of tests. And then I like how you said, not be married to the data, not be married to the keywords. Like, you just have to then look at the numbers, almost ignore the keywords on some level, and just play with the data once you throw out a lot of tests.
Absolutely. If unless it's a keyword that I know that I'm like purposely like
Yeah.
losing money on to rank for, it doesn't even matter what the keyword is. And a lot of people also underestimate people actually looking for them. So it's always very important to have a branded campaign right off the bat, because if even if you think no one's looking for you, at least when someone does look your name up, you're like, there's not 4 other products that show up and sponsored before yours. So you want to kind of dominate that space as well. So yeah, definitely don't underestimate. A lot of people think they're like, oh, like I'm just a private label, brand, like no one's looking for me by name. But I thought that too when I started, but there was a lot of people looking for me by name.
Yeah.
And you never know. It's like someone tells his friend about this product, and that's how it happens.
Yeah, and those are also that's also just the best feeling, when it comes down to building a brand and kind of having some level of a loyal customer base. When you see that people are literally typing in your brand name and you're seeing those sales, and obviously those campaigns are going to be hyper profitable because you're just serving them an ad for exactly what they're searching for. It's a pretty cool feeling to know that, to just kind of imagine people telling their friends or telling their coworkers, whatever, about your product. So yeah, I agree
Absolutely.
with that. And those ones are definitely one that a lot of people ignore, especially early on. So that's a great tip for people that may have thought, oh, it's too soon. Nobody's thinking about my brand yet.
Absolutely. And one other thing, just going back to the evil one, it's going to be hard to discover products that just came out on Amazon. But an easy way to do that is going to like creating a product targeting campaign and look at the Amazon suggested ASINs. Amazon will give you like 100, 200, 300 options of ASINs you can target as a suggestion. And a lot of times you can find those brand new products over there.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good one too. So I'm sure you could probably talk PPC for like 100 hours, and we'll probably do this again. Honestly, I think because there's so many little areas to get into on PPC. But before we kind of tell people where to learn more and all stuff, was there any other tip that you wanted to make sure we hit on today?
Yeah, the number one thing is, guys, if you're gonna do all these tests and everything, just be very detail oriented and document everything. And it's gonna take time. I wish like there was a better answer, but it's just gonna take time. You spend money, you're buying data. Once you buy the data, you're going to make a change based on the data, and then you're going to wait again. You're going to spend some more money to get some more data and look at the new data. And so make sure that you're documenting everything. And I know it's very tedious to do that, but it will pay off because, if you don't document and if you don't write down what you're testing and all that stuff, you end up like just wasting money. And especially in a time like this when everyone's trying to save a lot of money, you want to be very careful with your spend and like just don't be afraid to spend money. If you're spending it, just have a very good purpose of spending it, because you're spending that money to get that data, and if you use that data well, you're going to make a lot more money. So that would be my number one tip.
No, that's a good one. Just keeping your eye on it. You can't just let it kind of roll on its own for months at a time or something like that. So
absolutely,
so that's a great tip. So where are you? What do you have out there that people can learn more about PPC and what's going on in your mind?
So, if you want to learn more about PPC, you can visit the ppcuniversity.com. That's my PPC course. I cover everything start to finish. You can hit me up, Mina Elias, on Facebook or Instagram at Egyptian_prescription_Elias. I just answer all my DMs and messages. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me. And guys, good luck with everything. And just with enough time, if I got it, everyone else can get it.
Yeah, and definitely for anybody, considering Mina or considering the course, like I can obviously vouch for his expertise in this. I don't just have people on lightly and mention that they have a course and whatever, but honestly, it was something people had asked me to make a PPC course or something at points that I had considered, but you're going much deeper into this. That's the honest truth. So my best recommendation is to check out something like that, and there will be a link in the description to that. And as well, if anybody does join through that specific link, I'll even throw in a call with me if there's anything I can help with related to that. But Mina is going to help you out anyways because he's insanely responsive. But that'll be linked in the description. But people should definitely check that out.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate it, Matt.
Cool, man. Well, to everyone watching, definitely leave comments and questions for Mina. I'm sure we'll probably do a follow-up. We have already some ideas, but we can break it up. But thanks for coming on, man.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, man.
So I'm sure you got a lot of value out of that. Clearly, Mina absolutely knows his stuff when it comes to PPC. In the description below, you can check out his PPC University if you think that would be a fit for you. I can definitely vouch for him, and there is a lot of content, amazing value in there. So anyone that really needs to give a further look at PPC, that would be a great option for you. And thanks for watching. Let me know what you want to see more of next, and take care. See you soon.